Welcome back. With the Democrats out of power in the White House and the minority in both the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, the party is in search for answers and in desperate search for some new leadership. Former Democratic presidential candidate Howard Dean has actually put his name in for the new chairman of the Democratic National Committee. The former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley is also considering a run, while others are backing Minnesota Congressman Keith Ellison, and that includes Senator Bernie Sanders, who was endorsed by Ellison when he was running for the Democratic presidential nomination. So who will lead the Democratic Party? Joining us now to discuss that and more from Vermont is Jane Sanders. She's the wife of Senator Bernie Sanders. Jane, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here, Wolf.
All right, so Senator Sanders says he's supporting Congressman Ellison as leader of the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, because he says it needs to be led, and I'm quoting him now, by a progressive that understands the dire need to listen to working families. Here's the question. Couldn't he be that voice, Senator Sanders, or at least play a leading role in the DNC? Is he considering something along those lines?
Well, he's playing a leading role in the Senate, and I think that everybody has a role to play, and politics has to stop being the cult of the personality. We need to bring more people into the process, not people all over the country into the process, but also more voices in the establishment, whether it's the political establishment or the media establishment. Keith Ellison has been the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He's a very influential and intelligent, articulate leader, and we think that he would be really good to lead the DNC. I think right now, Wolf, we can't go backwards. We can't be looking at the moderate wing or the conservatives to try to, we don't want to recreate the DNC of yesterday. It wasn't the right mix for this time. We need progressive leadership, not just at the top, but in the executive board and throughout the country. The DNC has about over 400 members. We need voices that understand what the reality of people's lives are.
And you don't think Howard Dean or Martin O'Malley fits that bill?
I like them both very much. They're both very decent people. But that's not all we're looking for anymore. We're looking for people that have progressive, intelligent, different kinds of solutions that recognize that we need to address the pain that people are feeling out in the country. 15 states that Bernie won went to Trump. 90,000 people in Michigan voted all the way down ticket, all the other races, but didn't say anything in the general election, in the presidential race. We'll see that all over the country. People are hungry for a new direction. I think that's why Trump has won this election. They want change. The question is, what kind of change are they going to get? We need to, we all know all over the country, all over the world, there are populist movements, and some of them are very, very good. Some of them are not so good. And how America has judged them in the past is from a corporate perspective. My one hope with President Trump is he said he's going to go in there and he's going to represent the working people. We need to find common ground on issues such as trade and globalization and jobs and infrastructure. We hope to find common ground with him on that. And then we need to fight him back on some of the other areas that he's talking about. Today is Veterans Day. Our veterans, we owe such a debt of gratitude to them. They have fought for our democracy, which means that people of all races, ethnicities, backgrounds are equal. Nobody's less than. And they're treated with dignity and they feel safe in our nation. So those are the two-prong approaches that we need to really fight for.
A little technical question, then I want to move on. Senator Sanders, I think, still is listed as an independent in the U.S. Senate, together with Angus King of Maine, although they both caucus with the Democratic Party. Does he now consider himself a full-fledged member of the Democratic Party?
You have to ask my husband that. I am an independent.
All right, I'll ask him the next time I speak with him about that. Clearly, he wants to have some influence in the Democratic Party. He ran for the Democratic presidential nomination.
Well, he will.
Last
he will
night,
have.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll have a lot of. I'm sure he'll have a lot of influence. I want to play a little clip for you, Jane. In my interview with Senator Sanders last night, I had this exchange with him, and I want to play that clip for you. Listen to this. But it never crossed your mind that you might have done better against him? You might have actually won if you had been the Democratic nominee?
What good does it do now?
I pressed him a few times on that. He really didn't want to get into it. You're an honest, a very candid woman. Do you think your husband would have had a better chance of beating Donald Trump than Hillary Clinton did?
Absolutely, but it doesn't matter. The election is over. What he has to do now is use his influence and work with people across this country to affect the change that they would have voted for had he been on the ticket, and they did vote for in the primary, despite all the irregularities.
Looking back
so
with
it's not about us.
Jane,
it's
right
not about.
Now, I understand.
I'm sorry.
But looking back with hindsight now, that it was a very, very close race between your husband and Hillary Clinton for the Democratic nomination. Do you believe it was free and fair, that both sides had an equal opportunity to get the delegates they need to get that nomination at the Democratic convention?
You know, Wolf, that's yesterday's news. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the DNC was on Secretary Clinton's side. We said that 6 months ago, so it was no surprise when it came out, when more information came out. That is not what concerns the American people. What concerns them now is whether or not they're going to get jobs, whether or not their kids are going to be able to go to college, whether they're going to be able to afford childcare, whether the planet is going to be taken care of in terms of climate change. I think the next few months are going to show a lot of things to us. It'll depend on what cabinet officials President-elect Trump decides to put in. I mean, he said that he was coming down here to, quote, drain the swamp, and he was going to not let the corporate elite run the country anymore. Our hope is that that part of his promise is true, that he is not going to go and bring in all the same old faces, but that he will be, I don't know whether that's going to happen. The same with the DNC.
Very quickly.
The DNC's future is in
Jane,
balance.
Yes or no, would you be open to Senator Sanders running again for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2020?
See, that's exactly the wrong question, Wolf. Nobody cares except the political pundits. He's concerned about 2017. He's concerned about our Muslim population in feeling great fear right now. We're hoping that President-elect Trump will give them a reason to not feel that anymore. He's concerned about the fact that people are hurting, that the water systems in Flint are still not repaired. Those are the things he's focusing on. And what happens in 2020 will happen in 2020. We'll talk to you in 2019. How's that?
Well, we'll see. It seems like a long way down the road, but you know what? Not too long.
But
indeed.
no,
right.
we'll talk to you every day. We'll talk to you every day on the issues, Wolf. Every day, if you want us.
All right, every day. We'll continue this conversation. Best regards to Senator Sanders as well. Jane Sanders, thank you.
Thank you, Wolf.
Coming up.